38% of US households have credit card debt. 43% of people with student loans are not making payments. Most people feel like they could be doing better with their money. In fact, most Americans feel like a financial failure statistically based on polls. So what's making people feel so financially insecure, and how can we make sure that doesn't get passed on to the next generation, our children? We aren't trying to make our kids love money or make them filthy rich, but we are trying to make them financially secure, and definitely don't want them to feel insecure. Money doesn't have to be a major stressor for our kids or for us. So we're going to look at 8 things that keep people financially insecure and how to battle each one of them. Let's get started. Please don't forget to subscribe for more videos on money, minimalism, our travel journey around the world. We publish a new video every week. Okay, let's dive straight into these 8 things. Number 1, a financially insecure childhood. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It's the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life. Nelson Mandela. This is the biggest one because it takes so long to overcome. I've met more than a few millionaires that are still financially insecure because of their childhood, because of the conditions they grew up in. When you grow up with nothing, you carry that stigma with you into adulthood, and you never feel like it's enough. People who lived through the Great Depression still had habits left over from the Great Depression, even after they were more affluent than they were before the Great Depression. But they kept those habits because of a period in their life whenever they had to live a certain way to survive. And likewise, if you grew up in a financially insecure home, then you probably have some of those habits. Some of those habits are positive habits like frugality and planning, budgeting, and some are harmful like hoarding, greed, things like that. Despite your situation as a child, it is possible for you now as an adult to find financial freedom and security. So how do you battle a financially insecure childhood? Well, the numbers help a lot. Whenever you can see that you're on track and you're on the right path to become successful financially, that helps tremendously. When you have a goal set, you have something to reach and you'll know when you get there. So writing all this stuff down, planning, goals, this helps. We'll talk more about planning in a minute, but first let's talk about what a poverty-stricken home in a lot of childhood homes leads to. Number 2, not being financially literate. There is a secret psychology of money. Most people don't know about it. That's why most people never become financially successful. A lack of money is not the problem. It is merely a symptom of what's going on inside of you. T. Harv Eker. 2/3 of American adults can't pass a basic financial literacy test. 2/3. That shouldn't come as much of a surprise since finance isn't really taught in schools, and that's a lot of what Freedom Sprout in general is about, and I have plenty of videos on why that is and how to teach kids about money, but this shouldn't surprise us. Most people have no idea what they're doing with their money, even if they earn a lot of it. So how do you battle financial illiteracy? Start by making yourself financially literate. Take the time to read some books, take some courses, get a degree if you want to, whatever it takes to become financially literate, to learn about money. Spend the time learning about money and then pass that down and teach your kids, because we all know the schools are not going to do it. Even if your kids are getting older and in their teens, it's still not too late. I did a video I can link about teaching teens about money, but teach your kids about finances in general. Financial literacy and financial security comes down to controlling where your money goes, and that leads to number 3, not controlling your money. You must gain control over your money, or the lack of it will forever control you. Dave Ramsey. Financial illiteracy leads to out-of-control spending and absolutely no plan for your money. I know this because that's exactly how I started, with no plan, and my spending was out of control. Around 1/3 of Americans actually keep a budget, or at least they say they do. But even if they actually all do, that's not very many. If you don't have control over your money, it will never matter how much money you make. The person who earns $5 million a year and spends $5.1 million a year is still broke. If anything, it's worse because they're larger numbers that they're playing with. The fact is, money doesn't solve money problems most of the time. If someone needs $500 to pay the rent today and you give them $500 and they use it to pay the rent, sure, that solves money problems. But continuing to give somebody money, if they don't know how to use their money, they're not controlling it, they're not budgeting, they're not spending it wisely, is not going to help their situation. If anything, they're going to think that they have more money now and they're going to spend more, and they're going to become even more broke than they already were to start with. So what does solve money problems? a change in habits and behavior. The amount you make is rarely the issue. It has much more to do with what you do with what you have than it does with simply what you have. So how do you battle a lack of control with your money? It's pretty simple. A budget. There's freedom in a budget. It's not binding like most people think. Most people think of a budget as a restrictive thing, but it's actually freeing. There's freedom. It allows you to get the most out of every single dollar you earn. You work hard for your money, so you might as well take the time to work out a plan for how you're going to spend your money. And speaking of a plan, now we're on number 4, not having a plan. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. Alan Lakin. 1/3 of US adults, this seems to be a popular statistic, have absolutely nothing saved for retirement, and less than 50% have more than $10,000 in savings. People aren't ready for retirement, and most people don't have a plan. How can you reach a goal when you don't have one? How can you reach financial security if you don't know what that is for you, if you don't know what your number is, how much it's going to take? You won't get anywhere without a financial roadmap. So how do you battle not having a plan? Surprise, get a plan. You've got the 4% rule, that's one option. The 4% rule is a conservative estimate that states you can withdraw 4% of your retirement investments and still have it grow at a rate that ensures you don't run out of money. So you would save enough to be able to live on 4% of it. That's one option, but a lot of people seem to think that that's more conservative than necessary. I'm one of those people. And partially because the 4% rule would leave a whole bunch of money left over. And if that's your plan, then that's fine. But a lot of times you don't have to get to that amount of this hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions. You can actually get to a smaller amount if you don't plan on leaving $1 million. And that's up to you whether or not you think you need to leave $1 million. If your kids start investing early and you teach them all these principles and all these videos that I have about teaching kids about money, they're not going to need you. They're not going to need your legacy. They're going to build their own legacy, and their kids shouldn't need their legacy because they're going to teach their kids about money. And of course, if your kids understand the dangers of debt, that's going to help them to not get anywhere where they need all of that money that you plan on leaving them if you're going to do something like the 4% rule or just generally have a whole bunch of money left when you die. Speaking of debt, number 5 is not understanding how debt works. The man who never has money enough to pay his debts has too much of something else. James Lindahl Basford. U.S. consumer debt is over $4 trillion, and a quarter of that is credit card debt. Some people are starting to wake up and realize that making minimum payments is basically the same thing as not making payments, but a lot of people are still stuck in the debt trap. Or even if they do realize that, they can't get out of it because they have racked up so much debt to where they are now. And of course, there's still a slew of Americans and people in general out there, just like I was whenever I first started in my adult life, spending credit cards like it's monopoly money. So how do you battle not understanding how debt works? Just learn a little bit about debt. There's not much to know. Mostly avoid it. If you use credit cards, pay them off in full every month and you won't pay interest. Don't get a card with an annual fee because it's usually not worth it. And if you can't pay your cards off in full 100% every single month, then stop using credit cards because that means you don't have enough money to be using credit cards. You're spending money you don't have. If your spending is out of control, debit cards are a great alternative, or use cash. Just stop using credit cards if you're not responsible enough to use them, and be honest with yourself about that. Compound interest is an amazing tool when it's working for you, and I've done plenty of videos on that and the importance of your kids starting to invest at a young age because of that, but it's a terrible thing whenever it's working against you, and you'll never get out of debt by paying minimum payments. And a lot of the debt that people have gotten themselves in came from unexpected expenses like medical debt, just different things that fell into their lap. And one thing that can help with that in some ways is insurance. And number 6 is not having adequate insurance. Getting into debt because you wanted a car you couldn't afford is one thing, but getting into debt because of some major unexpected expense is another thing. The two have more in common than most people realize, and financial literacy can cure both. Me. I know it's pretentious to quote myself, but that is something that I had written in a book that I think makes a lot of sense for this, since it's about insurance and big unexpected medical expenses. And if I actually had to write down the word pretentious, I would have to look up how to spell it, so I definitely don't think higher of myself than I ought to. I just felt like the quote was fitting. In 2017, almost 30 million Americans did not have health insurance. Surprisingly, the numbers haven't changed that much. Insurance is a $1 trillion industry, and there are thousands upon thousands of insurance companies in the States. Yet most Americans don't have enough insurance, And the problem comes because they don't really understand insurance. So how do you battle not having adequate insurance? You just have to learn a little bit about insurance. With the first rule of insurance being, if you can't afford to replace it, insure it. That goes for your house, that goes for your car, that goes for your health, that goes for your life. Educate yourself, educate your children on the different types of insurance, the appropriate types of insurance, and what you need. I can put some links below to some articles I've written that have the insurance kind of explained. There are several types, but you only need certain types. You don't need all of it. You don't need 5 different life insurance policies. You don't need some ridiculous whole life insurance policy for sure. But insurance is very important. So the types of insurance that you could potentially need would be health, home, rental, auto, life, disability, and there are some others, maybe umbrella insurance, that might make sense for your specific situation. But I will put some more about insurance below. I'll put a link and I'll put some more information. Number 7 is not seeing the bigger picture. I work really hard at trying to see the big picture and not getting stuck in ego. I believe we're all put on this planet for a purpose, and we all have a different purpose. When you connect with that love and that compassion, that's when everything unfolds. Ellen DeGeneres. Life isn't all about working to survive. We should work to live. We shouldn't live to work. That was a common saying when I was in Italy, is that Italians work to live and Americans live to work. We have a bigger view of how much money we need in America typically, and we strive for more money, and we're just constantly trying to make more money. But we should be working to live our lives. We shouldn't live our lives to just work and then die. It's pointless. So why are you really working? Are you working to pay your bills? Are you working paycheck to paycheck? Or are you trying to leave a legacy? Or are you trying to work enough so that you don't have to work anymore and you reach financial freedom? Why are you working? You need a financial plan to see the bigger picture. There has to be a goal, an end game. So how do you battle not seeing the bigger picture? Take a step back and evaluate your financial situation. Set some goals and determine where you want to be in 5 or 10 or 20 years. Take the time for yourself. Actually spend the time, maybe half a day, maybe a whole day, maybe longer, figuring out what you want to get in life and find your bigger picture. Realize that you are not living paycheck to paycheck for no reason. You may be trying to get to a certain place, but it isn't for no reason. Finally, number 8, not having enough gratitude. Gratitude is the healthiest of all human emotions. The more you express gratitude for what you have, the more likely you will have even more to express gratitude for. Zig Ziglar. It's so easy to get caught up on chasing things, material possessions, chasing promotions, chasing money, chasing happiness. I'm not going to go into that again. I talk about this all the time. Video on happiness. I'm not going to go into all of that again, but it's really easy to get caught up in chasing those earthly things. And being ungrateful and not having enough ever, not ever feeling like you have enough, always wanting more and more and more, is going to keep you insecure. If you always seek more, you're never going to appreciate truly what you have. So how do you battle not having enough gratitude? You practice gratitude by starting small, just like we talked about in the habits videos. You can start by listing 3 things every day, every morning or every night before bed or whenever you want to do it. List 3 things you're grateful for. Simple. Takes 30 seconds, if not less. This is a good habit to teach to your kids as well. You can list 3 things in the morning or night or whenever that you're grateful for every day. And we actually have a dinner table habit that I've talked about before where we go around the table before we eat dinner and each person says something they're grateful for. Just getting more gratitude into your home is always going to be a benefit. So that's it. Let me know if you think of more things that are keeping people financially insecure. I feel like this covers pretty much all the things. Leave a comment below if there's some other stuff that you think is, or if you want to talk about any of these points on here. Please don't forget to subscribe for more of these videos on money and on minimalism and our travel journey around the world. Check out my new book, Intentional Children. I'll put a link to that below. It's not really new anymore. I keep saying new book, but it's not that new. Anyways, that's all for today. I will see you next week. So that's it. Let me know if there's more things that keep people finding it out.